After many years of living with chronic fatigue syndrome, I finally came to realize and appreciate in the end that my recovery had to be focus and priority number one. It had to come above pretty much everything else if I wanted to get past this. And I needed to have a system for this, and I needed to figure out how to pace myself. Today I'm going to share with you my strategy that I developed for myself for pacing myself safely and effectively with chronic fatigue syndrome recovery. So just before I dive in, I just want to thank you for watching, for commenting, subscribing, liking, sharing, and all of that. And if we're not already connected and friends on Instagram or Facebook, please come find me because I'd love to meet you. I'd love to get to know you a little bit. I'd love to hear a bit about your story, what you're going through, and if you ever have any questions, it's a quick and easy way for you to reach out and talk to me. So pacing, yes, it's about not overdoing it and not making ourselves crash. But for me, the biggest part of pacing is to make sure that we are using what energy that we have to focus on our recovery, to focus on the most important things, the things that are going to get us out of this mess. We need to pace ourselves so that we can make pacing a thing of the past. If we're not careful, when we're living our lives, if we don't have a conscious approach to our days, to our weeks, to how we're doing things, the way it ends up is that about 80% of our results ends up coming from about 20% of the stuff that we do, which is pretty insane. That means that about 80% of our effort really isn't getting us anywhere. And with something like chronic fatigue syndrome, where you have so little energy, you need to make sure that you're not wasting 80% of it. For me, it's about having a conscious approach to the way I live my life, to the things that I do every day, that I'm doing things with intention, that I'm thinking about where they're getting me, that I'm not just coasting and letting stuff happen to me. So I developed a system for myself just to make sure that I was using whatever usable time and energy I had every day to devote to productive things that were pulling their weight and getting me out of this. So here's my system. I'm going to share it with you. It's 5 steps that I follow, and I've put this all together in a PDF. There's a link in this video's description. If you just expand the description, you'll see it below, and you can download it if you like for free. You don't need to. You can just use a notebook, a piece of paper, your computer, whatever. But as I go through this, if you find you're getting lost a little bit or you think it would be helpful to have a visual guide to follow, just download the link. But you will need something, a piece of paper, a computer, a printed off PDF, some place that you can start writing things down and making a plan for this system of mine that I'm about to share with you. All right, so step 1 is just to track what you're already doing, just to get a snapshot of what your life currently looks like, because most of us actually don't even really know how we spend our time. We don't have an accurate idea in our minds of how much time we devote to certain things. So you're just going to take a chart, a table of some kind, something simple like an Excel sheet it could be, with the days of the week across the top and then some time slots down the left hand side. And then for one full week, you're just going to fill in every day how you spend your day. Or you can use the downloadable one that I have in the video description and fill it all in there. So put in everything: sleep, rest, hygiene, meal prep, if you're able to work, how much time you spend working, how much time you spend on social media, how much time you spend watching TV, how much time you spend surfing the net, doing chores, childcare, whatever it is that you've got going in your life. There is no good, there is no bad, there is no judgment. It's just about getting an idea of how you spend your day so you can know how you're spending your time. So for one full week, do just that. Just track. And don't move on to anything else, any of the further steps, until you've done that tracking, because you don't want it to sway your activities or how you're tracking things. We just really want an honest glimpse of what your life currently looks like. So after you've tracked for a week, then you move on to step 2. Now, step 2, we're going to put that chart aside and just take out a blank sheet of paper or use the PDF that you've downloaded. And here you're going to make a list of all the things that you think right now are helping you to recover or that might have the potential to help you recover. So these could be things that you're already doing or things that you haven't yet started but you'd like to try. So this list is going to be a complete list showing all the things. In a perfect world, if you could do anything you wanted, if there were no limits, no obligations, no restrictions, you could just do exactly what you wanted. These are all the things that you would be doing right now, that you would be trying and devoting your time and energy to get well. All right, step 3. Step 3, we're going back to that chart where you tracked all of your activities for a week. You can put your list aside for now. So back to our chart, you're just going to take a highlighter, and I want you to highlight every single thing on that chart that is something in your life, time that is spent doing things that drain you. So they might be things that drain you, but you think are helping you. Like maybe you've started a gentle exercise program that drains your energy, you still highlight it. Or maybe there are things that are draining you that have no purpose or value at all. Maybe, things like social media or dealing with difficult people in your life or whatever, but just anything on that chart that drains you, zaps your energy at all, gets highlighted. All right, so step 4. Step 4, we're still looking at this chart. We've just highlighted a bunch of stuff that we know drains our energy. So you're going to grab a pen, and now you are going to circle the items that are highlighted that, although draining, you feel that they are contributing to your recovery somehow. So it could be things like spending time researching your illness and trying to understand it better, consulting professionals, going to counseling, some kind of movement or exercise program, time spent preparing healthy meals, whatever it is that's happening in your life right now that is draining, but you think is helpful, circle it. Now you're going to look at all of those highlighted items on that chart that aren't circled, and you're going to write them all down on a separate sheet of paper or in the download that you took from this video. But you can just use a blank sheet of paper and write down all the highlighted but not circled items and put them all down on a piece of paper. So these are all things that drain your energy, that zap your energy in some way and are not contributing to your recovery. It doesn't mean that these things don't have value. It might be things like feeding your children or your dog, things that have to get done. But these are just all of the things in your life right now that are zapping your energy, that are not directly contributing to your chronic fatigue syndrome or ME recovery. Now you're going to look at this list of these energy zappers, and you are going to be extremely creative and a bit ruthless about what you can cut back on and what can completely go. So, and there might be things on there that you enjoy doing and you don't want to get rid of, even though they're not helping your chronic fatigue syndrome recovery. Maybe spending a lot of time on social media or doing a lot of socializing or whatever it might be. But if it's not helping you get better, in my experience, it cannot be your focus during recovery. And you might not have to get rid of it altogether, but in my experience, you have to look at reducing it quite a bit. So keep small amounts of it in your life, but cut it down significantly until you are feeling better, and then you can bring it back into your life in larger quantities. So every single one of these things that you've listed on this sheet of paper, list as many strategies or ideas that you can think of for how you can shrink the amount of space that these things are taking up in your life. And I think sometimes we have a default to, but like, oh, I can't, or I have to do this, or I can't do that, or there's just no way, or it's impossible. But to truly put your recovery first, I think we need to find ways to make what we think is the impossible possible. Are there people that can help out with things? Are there people that can help out with household chores, childcare, shopping, whatever it is? And I know we don't like to impose on people, but with chronic fatigue syndrome, you're facing a very serious illness, and perhaps it's because it's not well known or well understood. So maybe even we ourselves don't take the recovery as serious as we should, but we need to. So we need to lean on people. We need to ask for help. We need to explain to them what we're going through and tell them what we need so that we can get past this. So can you get things delivered? Can you scale back? Make your meals simpler? Who can help with things? What can you relax your standards on? What can you lay off on for a bit and not worry about until sometime in the future when you're stronger and have more energy and can get back to those things? Again, this is about taking charge of our lives and being in control instead of letting life just happen to us, being pulled in every direction like a puppet. I don't think there's any way out of chronic fatigue syndrome when you're living your life this way. I lived that way for years and it did not get me anywhere. So be creative, be ruthless, and find ways to significantly reduce those things that aren't serving your recovery. You know, for me, living with chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, is kind of like being in a sinking ship. And it's really on me to bail myself out of this. And I'm just going to keep sinking if I'm not doing anything to get myself past it. And no one else is going to do this for me. No one else is going to make my recovery a priority as much as we want people to, or might think that they should. It's just not going to happen. Other people are wrapped up in their own lives. And I think we think if we put all these boundaries in, if we make all these changes, that the people around us will judge us or freak out. It's not going to work. But in my experience, people adjust. Like, they adjust, and they care far less about what you're doing than you think they do. They're just focused on their own world. So do what you need to do, and you'll be surprised at how everything around you kind of just adjusts to it. All right, step 5, our last step with all of this. Now we're just going to take a blank weekly chart. So again, make up your own or use the one that I have linked below. And you are going to fill it up with as much as you think you can safely manage of those items that are contributing to your recovery. This is going to be from that list that you originally made of all the things that you think have the potential to contribute to your recovery, the things that you are already doing and the things that you would like to be doing. So you're going to take those things and just plug them into this new chart of yours, and be realistic. Don't overdo it. Small doses. You're probably not going to be able to do all of them every single day, but fit in what you can. Start with these. Put these in first. Think of your energy like money, and you're always going to pay yourself first. You need to put your recovery first so that you can reclaim the rest of your life and stop this cycle of struggle that you're in its tracks. Now, things like rest and lots of sleep are probably going to be a big part of this. So you're going to need to fill your chart in with lots of space for rest and sleep. And if you found that you were running at too much of an energy deficit before, you're likely going to have to increase the amount of time that this takes up in your life. So start scheduling in more time for rest and more time for sleep. This is a big part of pacing. It's making sure that you're not overdoing it and having a conscious approach to how you accomplish that, to having a plan, to having a system in place that you follow. Because if you're relying on just willpower, like I'll just do what I want when I feel like it, and hopefully I'll figure out to stop when I should stop, it's not going to happen. In my experience, that never happens. And once you've got those mandatory healing recovery items on your schedule, then you're going to plug in the rest from your reduced list of energy zappers, of things that you feel still need to get done. If you've been creative enough, if you've been ruthless enough with that list, you should be able to fit those items in and still have the time and space for all the rest and sleep and active CFS recovery that you need. And now you just got to follow the schedule. And the way I find it's feasible to follow a schedule is that you do have to tweak it and adjust it as you go, as you figure out what works and what doesn't. And you need to use timers and alarms. I use my phone for this all of the time. So however long I've allotted for something, I set an alarm or a timer on my phone and make sure that it's going to go off and tell me when it's time to stop. Because then it interrupts me, it breaks me out of whatever I'm doing, and reminds me that it's time to quit. Because it's too hard just to rely on remembering to look at the clock or deciding to quit when your time is up. You really need a system. And that system is a schedule that you have really put a lot of thought into making sure it focuses on the right things, and then having tools throughout the day to make sure that you follow that schedule. So whether that's having the schedule someplace up on the wall that's visible, whether that's showing that to family members so they can help you stay on track, having alarms set, using timers, whatever it is, just make sure that you set your life and your environment up to support this new approach to life that you've got in place for yourself. And I find that not only does all of this planning and having this conscious approach to my life and to recovery really help with pacing and really help to make sure that I'm not overdoing it and that I'm using my energy for the important things in life, it also really helps me take back some control of my life, because chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, felt like it just stripped away so much of my control over things, and it feels really good to get some of that back. So now you are in control. You dictate the agenda. Even if it's lots of sleep and lots of rest, you know that you have a plan. And even if your social items and your fun items have been reduced, you can see them on the schedule so you know when they're happening and you have something to look forward to. And for me, that helps me to stay on track when I'm doing all the rest of the really hard recovery work. And I've also found that to be successful, you really have to put your ego aside, because our ego wants us to push past our limits, wants us to look like the fun person, wants to prove how hard we can work, wants us to just do all these things that are more about people's impression of us or our impression of ourselves, and that ultimately do not matter. The CFS does not care about it all. So I found that once I was able to really, truly put my ego aside and just focus on what matters, I was a lot more successful with all of this pacing and scheduling and planning. So there you go. That's my 5 steps to pacing with chronic fatigue syndrome. Again, you can print off the downloadable link in the video description if this all seemed a bit confusing or overwhelming. That way you'll have it and you can just follow along and fill in the blanks. It really spells everything out for you. And I'd love for you to put in the comments below if you have your own strategies for pacing that I haven't mentioned here. I'd love to learn what those are. I'm sure everybody else would too. And any comments or feedback or thoughts you have about the stuff that I've shared here, how you think this might be able to fit into your life. If you think this video had value, please share it. Take a screenshot. You can share it on social media, on Instagram or Facebook, and just tag me. Let's pool our resources. Let's share our strategies. Let's just put as much as we can out there, because there are far too many people that are struggling, and you just never know when you might pass something to someone that could really help them out quite a bit. So thank you for watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, sharing, and all of that. And remember to click that gray bell if you haven't already, so you'll know when future videos come out. And come say hi to me on social media. I'd love to hear from you. Whatever you're facing right now, just go easy on yourself. Just keep going at the pace that you can manage, one foot in front of the other, one day at a time. And I believe you'll get there. Did you know that I wrote a book? I bet you actually did, because I talk about it a fair bit, because I am ridiculously proud of this book. In Finding Freedom, I share not only my story, but also what worked for me to recover. Now, I know that my exact path won't be everyone else's exact path, but with all the goods that I share in here, I feel quite confident that at least a few things will be game changers for you as well. This is a book of connection. It's a deeply personal yet universally felt story. It's laughing endlessly at my expense while learning a few tools to thrive. I know it's a fantastic companion to help you on your journey to your happiest and healthiest life. I am so proud of this book, and I cannot wait for you to read it. And when you do read it, tag me in a post with the book, because I'd love to repost it and share a bit of your story as well.